All right, perfect, perfect. So welcome to today's workshop on being mindful in the chaos. And so if we've never met, I'm Deborah Loader. I'm a certified health and wellness coach, and I specialize in resilience, helping women recognize resilience, build resilience, and create the life they want with resilience. So we're going to be together today for probably about 20, 25 minutes. And let me check. All right. That's the one thing about the cloud. I'm going to have to remember to keep an eye on that when people are there ready to come in. Okay. Awesome. All right. So many things going on at the same time. All right. Perfect. So as I said, we're going to be together about 20, 25 minutes today. If you have any questions as we go along, you can type those into the chat and I'll keep an eye on that and try to answer those as soon as I can. So as I said, this is lunchtime, so please feel free to go ahead and eat. And if microphones are muted, then that helps with the audio quality as as we go on with the recording. So I'm going to put this in the speaker view. Awesome. All right, so let's jump in. Thanks for hanging with me there while I work through some of the technology. When it comes to being aware and in control of your mental health, mindfulness and self-care go hand in hand. And before you start taking steps to control the way your mind reacts to chaos and difficult situations, it's important to learn how to be conscious of the chaos and how it affects you. Then you can take measures to mend or redirect your cognitive process. Now, historically, we haven't, as a society, as a whole society, been taught to give our mental health the attention it deserves. And as a result, we've learned to sweep issues under the rug, grin and bear it through toxic relationships, and overload our schedules because we're afraid to say no. And whether we're born into families with difficult people or we find our way to them through friendships or partners or coworkers, it's challenging to know how to best respond to someone who brings negativity and unhappiness into our lives. One of the first things you can do is to realize that the behaviors being presented to or reflected at you are not your fault. The way that others cope with their feelings is part of their mental health and is not a reflection of who you are. Consider how differently two people might react to breaking a glass, a drinking glass. One person might throw a fit, while the other might calmly pick up the pieces and move on. Each is a reflection of the person's mental well-being and ability to cope with their own feelings. One of the most important aspects of being mindful in the midst of chaos is taking measures to eliminate as much of the chaos as possible. And oftentimes, the source of chaos and negativity comes from the people we choose to surround ourselves with. Well, we can't control every interaction we have. When it comes to our regular interactions, it's our job to develop firm and clear boundaries about what we will and won't tolerate. And whether it's a gossipy coworker or overly toxic a relationship, a romantic relationship, or even an overly critical family member, eliminating interactions with people who bring down your good energy will leave room for more positive energy to enter. And not all friendships are meant to last forever, and that's fine. While you shouldn't casually discard friendships over minor arguments or inconveniences, we should grant ourselves permission to move on from relationships that no longer nourish or support us. Now, if you feel exhausted just by the idea of hanging out with someone, it's probably a sign you should move on. Now, friends are hard to part ways with, but family members are even harder. One of the best recommendations I can offer is to set limits on the amount of time you wish to spend interacting with toxic people. And make sure to keep any conversation positive, pleasant, and focused on that person. By keeping the focus of the conversations on them, you're keeping yourself safe from unwanted drama while maintaining the relationship, if that's what you want to do. I'm reminded of what I heard once, that not every one of your family or friends is a 3-day kind of friendship or relationship. You may have one that is a 3-minute kind of friendship or relationship, and set the boundary to allowing 3 minutes with that person. Maybe another's a 3-hour, and that's great. And another may be a 3-day, meaning you would be nourished and filled with positive energy, spending 3 days with that person. You have a relationship with everyone you've ever had an interaction with, and that relationship can last just a moment, a lifetime, or anything in between. In each relationship, you cross paths and learn from one another. And since each of us are on different paths, you might only be walking side by side for a little while, and you also might cross paths later on. Understand that throughout your life, there may be many people who you meet, love, and learn from, and that ultimately you play a role in determining how long you walk along that certain path. In order to cut down on chaos in your life, you've got to make it a priority to keep your plate filled with the right amount of work that your mental health can handle. And many times this means learning to say no. And sure, you might feel guilty the first few times you turn the people down who ask you for favors, but I promise it will get easier with time. And as you practice that, because it is a practice, as you practice that, remind yourself why you're saying no. And you might say to the person, "Thank you so much for thinking of me. I appreciate the fact that you feel I could do a good job. However, right at this moment," fill in the blank. And you can offer those reasons to the person if you feel comfortable doing that. And remember that by saying no, you're in turn saying yes to things that you do want to spend your time and energy on. We've all sat through those awkward and draining interactions. Yet the line between being polite and saving yourself from the stress of staying too long can be a difficult one to draw. So here's a tip. Spending 5 minutes chatting with a person is polite. 10 minutes is more than enough. Any longer than that, and you have every right to excuse yourself. However, keep in mind that if you feel the situation could become dangerous in any way, of course, just say, "Excuse me, I've got to go," and walk away. Now that we've covered all the ways to eliminate excessive external stress and chaos in your life, I'd like to take a moment to remind you how important it is to keep people close who love and support you. For some of us, it can feel as though there is no one who fits into this category. And if this is the case for you, consider reaching out to, support groups or, Facebook groups that, for people who share the same interests as you. I said, whether in person or virtually, any positive connections you can curate will help bring peace to your mind. Okay, we're done talking about other people. Now, let's focus on you and your space. If you've ever watched a home makeover show, you know how much a physical space can impact mental well-being. From a cluttered bedroom to a poorly lit office space, the spaces you spend time in directly impact your psychological health. My three favorite ways to make a space feel better is ditch the clutter, add more light, and adopt a plant. And you can see I've got a few, one fake, but the rest of them are real. And also, you could always add a candle or an oil diffuser or a salt lamp. I have actually two salt lamps in my office, and I love them. One is right under my desk right now, and I have my feet on it, keep my feet warm. While you're refreshing your space, bring in colors, pictures, quotes, and anything else that brings you a little bit of joy when you look at it. If you're at a loss for where to start, try creating a mood board filled with pictures of things that catch your eye throughout the day. Walk through a fun furniture store, even if it's virtually, or create a Pinterest collection. One of my favorite ways to curate positivity is to spread it. Take the time out of each day to do something kind for someone, compliment a stranger, or just share a smile. And I'm curious, no judgment, but do you find yourself being judgmental toward others? The next time you catch yourself throwing shade, I like that phrase, throwing shade, pause and shift your thoughts into something positive about the person or situation. We are our own worst critics. And after decades of bullying ourselves, obviously our mental health takes a toll. Next time you look in the mirror or start thinking destructive thoughts, stop and list out a few things you're grateful for. One thing that is pretty powerful to move to the positive is to think about one part of you that you really like. And it could be something physical. Maybe you have really beautiful hands, or it could be a really nice personality or character trait. And then say, especially if you're looking in the mirror, say, I really love that about myself. Turns everything around. There are lots of ways that we can start curating a world around us that brings positivity and pushes negativity away. But stress will still find a way to creep in. And when that happens, focus on your breathing, right? Slow it down. Try to mimic the sound of waves, slow and steady, with a brief pause between inhales and exhales. And I often talk about the 5-5-7 breath, which is to inhale for 5 seconds, deep into your belly, hold for 5, and then exhale for 7. And it will bring a sense of presence and calm in a matter of minutes. Exercise is also great for the body. And if you want to take an extra step to connect to body and mind, yoga is definitely something you should try. Even chair yoga, that is huge right now. Just doing some yoga practice even while you're sitting down. And because yoga practice focuses so heavily on the breath, the asanas or the movements or poses turn the whole practice into a kind of moving meditation, which is proven to combat stress. And if yoga is not your thing, that's okay. Find something that serves as an outlet to focus your mind in the present moment that you can turn to when you're feeling stressed. I know that some of us use tapping, right? We use tapping, and it can be other things like cooking, crafting, coloring, petting a cat. Having a pet's wonderful. Tending to a garden or a house plant. Taking the time in your day to bring your mind away from anxiety and back to the present moment That's what mindfulness is all about. Now, while it's important to learn ways to cope with stress, your goal shouldn't be to distract yourself. Instead, find ways to release your thoughts, worries, and anxieties. And if you have the means to connect with a mental health professional and want to, please do so. Otherwise, just try writing your thoughts in a journal, right? Getting them out of your mind and into solid thoughts will help you gain some new perspective. And speaking of journaling, one of the best ways to train your brain to think more positively is to practice gratitude regularly. And gratitude rewires our brain so we become more likely to focus on the positives in the world than the negative. Now, we're not going to become ignorant of danger if we appreciate the positives for a little while, but we will become more open to the good. One of the things that I have done that I'll just offer and invite you to work on since we talked about toxic relationships or maybe some that are a bit stressful, you can use your gratitude journal and each day think of something good that you are grateful for or thankful for about that person. And it really helps you appreciate them. I did this one year, it was a year or so ago, and I did it for about 6 weeks. I wrote every day something I was thankful for about my husband, either something he did, something he said, or just the way he was, just who he was or who he is. And that helped me focus on the positive of everything about him. So I just offer that out, whether it's your husband, partner, friend, another family member, or a coworker. Sometimes a coworker, we could use some focusing on the positive. So as we come to the end of our time together, I've saved the most important piece of advice for last. Dedicate time to learn how to love yourself. And sometimes the best way to practice self-love is to learn how to enjoy your own company. So take time, take yourself out, to a movie or dinner, if that's possible. Or maybe even a solo trip. While those ideas may be a bit challenging right now, even just try spending some quiet time with just yourself. And once you learn how to love and cherish yourself and your worth, everything else will fall into place. And we've reached the end of our workshop today, but it's just the beginning of your journey toward a more positive, mindful life. And I'm going to share my screen because I want to share this quote with you. Give me just a second here. There we go. Our life is shaped by our mind, for we become what we think. And now this is an old Buddhist quote, but it's true. And another one that I like is by Jim Rohn. And he said, and I agree wholeheartedly with this, happiness is not something you postpone for the future. It is something you design for the present. I love that. So I'm going to share my contact information with you. If you have any questions, concerns, or would like additional information about any of the topics we discussed, or would like some of the references, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So here's my email, the website, phone number, Facebook contact information, all of that. Are there any questions before we complete today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. There we go. Any questions for today? All right. Thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with me. I really appreciate seeing your lovely faces at noon. And have an amazing rest of your day. Until next time, I invite you to live well.
You too, Deborah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marie. See you
Yep.
later.
Bye, honey.